More comments, or shall we?
I think we want to know how they feel about video games.
Oh, video games. So we know that President Trump, he is having a meeting today because he feels as though a big part of the reason why what's happening, especially after Parkland and the shooting in Florida, a big reason is gun violence and how kids are so intrigued by the video games and the violence within the video games that this could be a problem. So he's bringing together the video game industry and those who think that games have made kids more violent in recent years, and representatives, like I said, from the game industry. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen from that.
Same.
And I'm kind of interested that this conversation is still going. I am very happy about it.
Okay.
I'm very happy to see that more is being done to get down to the bottom of not just what happened in Parkland, but what is happening across our country. Because if you start to look at trends with those behind those guns, whether it's the gun is the issue, part of the issue, the person, mental illness, what is it, or you know, the amount of time they spend in front of these video games. What is the issue? And can we nail it down to one thing? And I'm interested to see what comes of this meeting today.
So, also, I was going to say, as a mom, my son, he's 11, he loves video games. So I will let him play, but I will not let him play one with guns. That's where I
so
draw
Call
the
of Duty, not.
No, that's never going to be allowed in my house because it's not anything that I personally, as a mom, want to promote. I don't promote violence.
Right.
We don't spank. Those are things that we just don't do. So that's where we draw the line. And I know people might disagree, but I don't want that to ever cross my mind.
As a parent, you get to make those choices in your house. It's your house, it's your rules. You get to decide that.
But then there are people on the other side of this equation that say there have been studies done, however few and far between, that say even with increased use of video games, the increase in physical activity as a result, aggressive physical activity does not increase. So that means even though your kids are playing gun violence games, it doesn't mean that they are going to actually go forward and do anything with a gun.
But it certainly doesn't help the situation, right?
I think it might desensitize kids to guns and the presence of violence. I could see that, but the study says
video games. I mean, you talk about the movie industry. I think the movie industry needs to take a step back and look at this too, because part of them, I think, are responsible too.
But then you could say that about Western films from back in the day, which were like
different times. What was the rate of public school shootings then in comparison to now, though? Like, there's got to be a vast difference.
I think for some individuals, though, and there can be a connection with video games or even movies. And the only reason why I'm saying that is if you guys remember the Virginia Tech shooting, that individual was some of his mannerisms, the weapons that he chose, the way that he dressed,
the knowledge of the artillery
was connected to this movie.
Okay.
And so they were like, oh my gosh, there's so many parallels with the way that he did it. He was a fan of the movie, and so there was basically a direct connection of some sort of influence or at least some sort of modeling after that. And so there was in that case, that was basically, if you think this is connected to movies, there's your Exhibit A right there. Now, millions of people have seen the same movie with no reaction to that. So what really is the strong risk that, how much does it really increase? We don't know, but at least in that case, for people that believe that, there is an example out there.
So Ernestino has said that he says he's been playing violent video games since he was a kid, now 34. I've had access to a gun and never once wanted to kill anyone. Well, thank you for that.
But think of someone who has some form of mental illness, who's allowed to play these games. And it's to sit here and point fingers is one of those things we just want to have answers, right? Yeah. But just how easy it is for someone to have access to this. You don't know everyone's condition. It could be different. So is that the video game's fault?
Right.
Is that not paying attention to mental illness as much? Like, what is it?
I think that this debate, as it comes back around, because this is about 20 years old before we had this, and then the video game rating system came out, so parents can make choices. Yeah. You know, your son's going to know what that game is. You may not know, but you can look at the box now as a parent and decide, okay, I can deal with this, or no, absolutely not. Right. So back in the day when this first started coming out, right around the time of Columbine, it was who played video games? Teenagers and very young people. Adults didn't really play video games to that capacity. It's different now.
Way different.
The video game and movie industry is massive, much bigger than just the video game industry itself is many times bigger than Hollywood. So you've got young kids, so preteens, definitely teenagers, kids in their 20s in college, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, some of my dad friends, kids go to
yeah.
sleep,
Yeah.
they're playing Call of Duty.
Headgear on and
Yeah.
all.
So now when if something were to come of this, if the president wants to make a decision or Congress wants to get involved and do something about it, I think the resistance will be a much broader demographic because it's easy to pass laws for 16-year-olds who don't vote.
Right.
Yeah.
It's much different when you're going to tell a 35-year-old you can't play these games anymore. You're going to have to jump through these hoops. I mean, I think whatever they decide, this is the issue. I think the resistance to change will be much stronger this go around.
And one reason for that is because there's so much more interest these days in kids pursuing a path to video game creation as a video game engineer. I know two of my little cousins have expressed interest in participating in a master's program for video game creation, and that's so exciting. They're in high school, so they have to get through college first, but still, it's something that 20 years ago, nobody would have thought of.
Just like I was telling my son, he's not really into sports. We have tried boxing and soccer, but he loves video games. And now they have video game, I want to say like Olympics. So they have sponsors. I mean, these kids are making
Had this in the
six
show
figures.
before, yeah.
Yeah,
Kids
training.
are?
Yeah, and it's nice to see like everybody.
Video game-a-thons.
Yeah,
Right,
is
because
included.
not everyone's going to be into physical sports. So what else is there?
Cooking.
And,
Yeah,
and
there's
how
lots
can
of
you?
I should have taken that one.
It's not the video games per se that's the problem. It's
Lack-
the type of games that are played on
Right.
these consoles, right? Because I mean, yes, video games can be great in terms of learning. I know growing up, I would play Donkey Kong.
Right.
That was
I did
that
Duck
was
Hunt.
Mario
Duck
Kart.
Hunt.
You know,
But let's be realistic
but
about
those
this.
weren't violent.
Let's be realistic about this for a second. So those games are still going to be made, no matter what. They make a lot of money, and there's enough.
With the
There's
violent
enough,
or non-violent?
violent games.
Violent games, right?
There are enough
also a
people
black
out
market,
there to
right?
support those games forever.
Yeah.
So if you feel like the issue is those games with young people having access to them, they already have this system in place with the video game ratings.
True.
So if you're not of a certain age, you can't go into the store and buy some of these games.
Yeah.
You have to
parent.
prove. So I understand. You should talk about all these things, right?
Yeah.
Why not? The moment is now. We're going to
regulate,
talk
right.
about everything. But realistically, what is going to happen? You can't ban these games. That would be the equivalent of banning a violent movie. It would never
Censorship.
happen.
Yeah, it wouldn't
exactly.
happen.
So I don't really. I mean, it'll be interesting. Sure, who knows what's going to happen today?
Yeah.
But let's be realistic about this.
conversation.
What is going to actually change? What could be put in
So-
place that isn't there already?
Do you think it's just a play by Donald Trump?
I don't know. I think maybe he's probably I don't know how invested he was
He has
in
a
the video.
son. He
Right.
has a young
does.
son.
I don't know how invested he was in the debate back in the day, but you're right. He does have a son. Who knows?
Or what are the business? What's the business move behind this? People
Right.
want
Who
to say.
knows?
So
I
Dan
think
Hewitt.
I think it looks good. Aesthetically, PR-wise, if you're trying
It's
to
presidential.
figure out a way to address the gun violence issue in our country after a major incident that's going to define your presidency, you want to look like you are hard on guns. And that's
Right.
difficult to do when you're so connected to the NRA.
And this is a non-controversial move. He supports the NRA.
Precisely.
They support him, and this will not make them mad whatsoever. This
Dan
will not
Hewitt.
ruffle their feathers.
Right.
But
No,
it
that's a
will
good
get
point.
people rallying behind him because they see, oh, maybe he is going to be a little bit harder about
Sure.
gun control issues, but this
Sure.
might not have anything to do with gun control.
So Dan Hewitt, who's a spokesman for the Entertainment Software Association, said in a statement, this was yesterday, that video games are plainly not the issue. He goes on to say that entertainment is distributed and consumed globally, but the U.S. has an exponentially higher level of gun violence than any other nation. The upcoming meeting at the White House will provide the opportunity to have a fact-based conversation about video game ratings, our industry's commitment to parents, and the tools we provide to make informed entertainment choices.
Right, and that is a key point. These, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
professional video game players, huge in Asia, huge in different countries
yes.
all
Like I
over
said,
the
bigger
world.
than Hollywood, yeah.
Exactly, and it is those games. It is Call of Duty. It is
I'm sure there's
basic-
so many out there that we
Oh,
don't
yeah.
even know about.
And what else is interesting
Reality.
too is that you can play together.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
You can people from different countries can play together on
So
the same
wild.
team. Yeah,
Yeah,
at the
that's
same
wild.
time. So you actually it crosses borders.
Yeah.
The whole video, it being global is a totally fair point because sometimes it's in the same game at
Yeah.
the same time. It is a global thing that's happening.
Or Adi,
That
I
is
just brought
so
up
cool to me.
a good point about virtual reality. That's like a
Oh,
whole
that's
other
gonna be a
way
whole
now to
new-
Then you're in
like
it.
be in it.
Yeah.
Are you now the shooter? Like not
Yes.
behind
That's-
the console where you
Oh.
can just
That's
like, are
totally
you
Have you guys
actually
done a
feeling it
real
now?
virtual reality thing when you're walking around with the headset and
Once
the
in a
glasses,
one time.
on it.
you have real reactions, anxiety,
Yep.
sweaty palms. You really do feel like you're about to fall out of a window.
Yep.
My friend, of course, he shot it on video. But I was terrified, and my heart was pounding.
Where's now?
Where's the video?
You have a real human reaction to a fake world. It's incredible.
I will say, growing up with brothers, and my father always had guns. They are big gun. They're into guns, and I remember as a kid just being, because he didn't go over it with me at the time, so just being interested in it. And I remember going into the room and sneaking in the cabinet just to look at it. So I do think there's an importance of educating. So with my brothers, as soon as they were interested in the gun, he took them out there and made them go through a whole round of ammo until they were almost crying to see how real it is. And
Yeah,
the
this is not a
devastation.
toy.
Yes.
This is not a toy.
Were they crying because of
They
the
were,
pain?
no, they were because it was so. It can be for your first time brutal. You see, it's scary.
terrifying, yeah.
Intense.
We've gone out to the range before,
Never done
just and it's because it's that idea that guns, it's a tricky thing, right? So guns, you see them as a violent entity, and then you go and you touch it and you shoot so that you're more familiar with it. Should you ever be in a situation where you do have to protect yourself, and there's a gun, I mean. And for a lot of people, it's a sport.
Right.
So you go to a very safe gun range. You put the proper equipment on the ear, and being behind the gun and shooting it, knowing that it's for nothing like no malintent there. It's just plainly to go to the shooting range. Yeah. It is a different feeling. It's scary. It can feel sometimes empowering because you're behind this weapon that you have this control over. And as a female, to be able to shoot it and have that sort of control of protection, sure. But it's a weird emotion where I didn't no, not something I'm interested in touching ever again, but been there, done that. But I think it's very important if you have them in your house for the self-protection reason that your kids know that they are not toys.
Yeah.
They are not toys.
Okay, so